Welcome to Power Hour. It's your time to put what's on your mind, on my mind, and I'll give you my 2 cents for free. But because we are in retrograde new moon, I'm taking the opportunity to flow things a little bit backwards and put what's on my mind, on your mind, okay? And we're diving in to some celestial energy and a Facebook outage this week and wondering how does this apply to our lives, okay? So the new moon, we'll start there. It's a simpler one, I think. And it is dark. If I was looking to find a picture of a new moon, and you can't, you will find a picture of stars, which is nice. The stars shine brighter around this new moon time because it's dark. We don't see the moon. And it is this darkness where it is all potential. This is what I have a friend, she calls it the goo phase. We are in the cocoon and it is goo. Nothing is organized yet. And that is to some extent saying we haven't organized it yet. And I'll get back to that. That's part of that quantum physics. Okay, so there's just a ton of potential and it's all just resting there. And if we don't recognize that this is part of the cycle, we tend to get restless and then go into reaction and overeat, create drama, binge, and scroll. But then when scrolling is not available, oh my God, what's going to happen then? And this happens about once a month, but now it's getting paired with about 6 planets in retrograde. Okay. And a lot of us know about Mercury retrograde. Communication breaks down, but here's the thing about retrogrades, about planets when they go retrograde. They appear to be moving backwards, but they never actually are. It's an illusion. So that even though we might feel in those moments that we are going backwards, we're not. It is just part of the cycle where instead of the energy flowing outward, it flows inward. And it's our invitation to look at these certain aspects about ourselves, our lives, what we're creating, what we're telling ourselves, to go in to seemingly, it'll look like we're going backwards. Why am I here again? Why am I facing this again? Is this again? I thought I was over this. It's an invitation to heal it on another level so that when we move forward, we've got a lot freer ability, a lot less limitation. We're not having this baggage anymore. Because every celestial body and every cell in our body is organized by the same consciousness that says, I want more. I want to know who I am. And so in part of what we're doing here on this planet right now is that, yeah, we're not moving backwards. Good to hear, I know. We are remembering, literally calling broken, wounded, rejected parts of ourselves and remembering, but we are also in the process of creating ourselves because we're infinite. And this is the first and only time we've been this. It's the one and only time we're going to get to be this. And what we do with this lovely meat suit and the experience of being Joy Lynn, Thomas, Kayla, Catherine, that we get to then offer our lives to the collective and say, here's what I got, here's what I learned, here's what I explored, and here's what I created that's now available for everybody else. And the new moon is just saying, okay, here we're ripe with potential. You call it. How do you want me to organize? And these planets in retrograde say, okay, let's take a look at this because here's how we did it in the past. It didn't work out quite right. It's time to let that go. That's what we're being called to do right now. But I'm just gonna highlight some of these planets that we're in just so you know, okay? We're in Mercury retrograde, and Mercury is a planet of communication. And so when it goes into retrograde, our communication to the outside world tends to get hindered, staticky, blocked in some way, garbled. And it seems like we are either having to explain ourselves more because people aren't getting it, or like Monday, communication systems just go down and we can't. And so that's calling in so that we look at how and what are we communicating with ourselves. What are we telling ourselves about who we are, about why we're here, about what we're doing, about what we've experienced so far? Because I can tell with some of the clients that I've been working with, especially what's been coming up in this past week, are old beliefs about how this is always going to be this way. This is never going to end. I'm inadequate. This means this. This means my kid behaving this way means this about me. And those things aren't true. That's communication we're telling ourselves. What are we feeding ourselves? I talked a couple weeks ago about how to boost self-love, and one of them was to watch your mouth. What are you putting in there? What are you communicating your value is with what you're putting in, as well as what's coming out about what you're saying about yourself? We have to be aware of this, and Mercury's calling us to do that right now. Pluto retrograde actually ends today, okay? But this is a death and rebirth cycle. We're getting ready to launch. I'm wearing red. This is my initiation day. You know, it's where we've come in some way, shapes, and forms. Like a death rebirth cycle is in some ways complete, because it never totally is, because we're on this side of heaven. But at least with this Pluto retrograde, something has died. So for some of you, this new moon and this darkness might be a good time to have a funeral of sorts, to celebrate, commemorate, appreciate, and lay to rest the old version of you that is not going into this next phase. Saturn is in retrograde. That ends this weekend again. Whew, another biggie, okay? That one's all about boundaries and structure, habits. How many times do we talk in Power Hour about habits that are emotional habits? How we react to things. When we feel some way, I don't want to feel that way, so I'd rather feel this way. We talked about with it the distractions last week. I would rather feel anything but sad, so you will see me get mad, because I'm way more comfortable with being pissed off than I am just about being sad and grieving something that can no longer be. But Saturn's saying, can't do that anymore. You got to check those habits at the door. They aren't coming with us. Yeah. The funeral idea, already looking forward to the replay. Oh, cool. Yeah. I've been thinking about that for a while, to have an actual funeral for the old version of myself. So today is a great night to do that. It's complete darkness. Neptune is also in retrograde, and that'll be until about December, but Neptune's one of our reality checks. Again, a sort of checks and balances. Is this real? I had somebody tell me in session yesterday, and I said, well, what's your responsibility? Well, I'm responsible for everything. Is that actually true? You're responsible for everything? You're responsible for your daughter's feelings? You're responsible for your husband's feelings? I'll tell you what, no. And Neptune's going to say, you can keep trying to tell yourself that, but it's going to start feeling heavier and heavier. Like you're going to know it's bullshit. Okay. We can't escape these things. We tell ourselves things. We hypnotize ourselves by repeating certain words and phrases over and over. But sometimes these things go into retrograde because we're going to start hearing them, and they're going to hit us and ping and feel a little bit funny. And something's not right. Now, I will tell you, if you're stressed, and we got a lot of shit in retrograde, so there might feel that, you'll think that something outside of you is what's off. But always your reality check is, how am I doing right now? How am I? Am I okay? Am I off? What needs to be healed here? Okay. And then, not currently, thank God, because we've got enough going on, but coming up this winter, Venus is going to go into retrograde. And let me tell you, your love life doesn't have to fall apart, because all she's asking is, are you in love with your life? Are you in love with yourself? Okay. So if we play our cards right, and if we listen to what's going on right now, this winter, we can have an easy retrograde, because we can say, yeah, and now I'm just going to sit back and let it sink in. Because I listened, I let go of habits. I took my reality check. I saw what I was telling myself with what I was saying and what I was eating and who I was spending time with. I made some adjustments, and I said goodbye to the person that tolerated all that stuff and said that that's who I was. And now I'm me, and I'm fucking in love with my life. Thanks, guys. These retrogrades aren't bad. They're invitations. Now, I did have somebody tell me that they were looking forward to this, but shocker here, short-staffed. It's happening everywhere. So she wasn't sure if she could make it, but she's like, help, I'm feeling so emotional. Well, number one, you can always come back to these replays that are in the real group vault, basically, because we've talked about how to deal with emotional intensity. We've talked about how to step out of emotional distraction. But when you're feeling emotional this way, You don't have to shoo it away and you don't have to run away. But also sometimes knowing that all this cosmic energy is moving and it's moving for us in a way to let us have more of us, that sometimes helps us to not overreact, not go into the same patterns and say, how can I use this emotion? What's the message? And a lot of what this emotional turmoil is that we're feeling right now is it's coming up to go. And I wish I could impart on you the day that I heard that it landed and it stuck, and never, ever for one moment since that day have I been the same person. It's coming up to go, but it can't go if we keep trying to shove it down, running away from it, and if we refuse to look at it and listen to it. And their emotions, they have messages, but they are meant to be felt. Emotions will not come with stories. That is what we do. If you are feeling emotional, I want you to check where that emotion is in your body, because it will be somewhere in your body. When it has a lot of narrative, when it has names and characters and players and becauses, you're up here and you're thinking the feeling instead of feeling it. Then if we don't let the body have it, it can't metabolize it. So that means that the next retrograde, we're going to have to do this over. Okay. There's your warning sign. All right. Let yourself feel the feelings. It will be uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable when it landed. It was uncomfortable when you didn't get the love that you were supposed to as a little kid. It was uncomfortable the first time you interpreted and said, I was stupid. That's why this happened. So it's going to have that same frequency and same resonance, but you don't have to hold on to it anymore. You just have to let it go, let your body metabolize it, and let that energy flow. That may be then you need some movement. It might be dance, it might be singing, it might be humming, it might be walking, it might be a bath. Ask it how it wants to move so that this energy can flow, so it's no longer stuffed inside. Okay. So that is the first part of my notes that we're covering. The second part is, how do quantum physics come into this? And how is this all applicable? Because this is all, I always think this stuff is fun to talk about and think about. But how do you actually get this in your life? Well, one of them is to actually feel your emotions. It's going to be uncomfortable. Now, if you are so lucky as to be in the 90-day relationship remodel, you've got a coach in your back pocket so that when it gets intense, you can text me and say, I need help dealing with this. That is something that's available to you. Okay, I'm just going to throw that out there. Resources are available. We've got old power hours where I talked exclusively about emotional handling. Okay, so there are resources for how to actually handle this difference so that you start reconditioning and recalibrating your nervous system to be able, so this doesn't rattle your cage, okay? And you're not dealing with it the same way. And you dismantle the stories so that you're no longer limited by the same bullshit, okay? Hooray! Now, quantum physics, okay? I love quantum physics. One of my main resources for this is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And of course, Nikola Tesla and Einstein. Okay, they're in there. That's who he's drawing his research from. Okay, but what one of the big take-home messages from this is that a particle will actually change its behavior through observation alone. Meaning, we don't have to do anything but look at a particle and its behavior will change. Weird, isn't it? But here's how that applies to you. When we're talking about shit that's unconscious or subconscious, all you got to do is shine the flashlight of consciousness to it. It already starts to change because it's already then moving from subconscious to conscious. It becomes available for change. That alone is movement. And all you had to do is look to it, shine a light on it. That's it. So that I had a client who actually went from start to finish through the 90-day relationship remodel. And I said, all right, where are we going next? And what do you think you need? And she's like, I think I need to do shadow work. And I was like, you do realize that's what we've been doing for the last 3 months? And she goes, what? She thought it was supposed to be so much harder. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be work. A lot of times it's just noticing the thing, and the real work is to just not judge ourselves for having had this pattern. Okay. That's the big work. But if we just notice these things, so that when I'm talking new moon, it's full potential, things haven't organized yet. We haven't organized it yet because we are the infinite. We are the potential and the organizer. Does that blow your mind? Okay. Get some paper towels. Maybe you got a mess there. I don't know. But all we have to do is actually just observe. Oh, I just said should again. That's me telling myself I should be different than I already am. That's me not accepting myself in this moment. Should, okay, just did it again. Oh, there, me. When I was I had a speech coach working with me. I say like and a whole bunch in conversation. I've gotten better. But the week that she gave me that assignment, I was like, I just said it. See, now I'm just paying attention. I was like, do I say any other words? Is anything else coming out besides like and Are they anything but conjunctions? And what's interesting is we don't think about these patterns, but every time I said, I was looking for validation. That's how subtle these language patterns are. And we don't have to work so hard to change them. I'm never going to say like again. I'm never going to use again. I'm just going to notice when I do that and say, wow, I really got that. That is an ingrained pattern. But as I notice it, I already stopped doing it. All I had to do was start noticing it. So notice when you start sentences with you should do this. Oh, that's me in retrograde looking outside of myself. Okay, let me change that to an I statement. When you feel like that, I have a lot of clients start that way. When you feel this? No, I don't know. You tell me about your experience because that's who we're here to talk about, okay? So you just notice these patterns, they will start to shift and change, and your communication becomes more powerful. And in that way, you start to organize it. Also, we use this new moon. You'll talk about, we can even have, I'm planning on doing this in the next couple of minutes, a little bitty ceremony for new moon to set intentions. To take a little bit of time to say, where do I want to go? What do I call it? I call it a future forward focus. It is really hard to come out of old habits if you have nowhere else to go. So you think, where would I like to go? What would I like to have as my life? How would I like to show up? When I think of who is Joy Lynn, what do I want to think of? I don't want to think of emotional basket case. I don't want to think of somebody who needs external validation for every other sentence she says. I want to be powerful. I want to be inspiring. I want to be enlightened and enlightening. I want to be one of those people who lift people up. Not somebody who's been comparing myself. That's how I used to be. I used to compare myself and I'd always be in the bottom. And then so my best thing would be to try to hold somebody down with me, or the only way I knew how to lift somebody up was to make myself lower. Here, you can step on me. I'm having a worse day, so you can feel a little bit better that your day's not at least as bad as mine. Boo. Boring, gross, no longer me. Thank God. Thank God for retrogrades, or I may have never examined this, okay? And you might notice this too, those of you who have moved away from home and then go back and see your parents and say, oh my God, that's where it came from. But we don't have to judge them or ourselves. We can just say, I'm using this new moon to set an intention. Not that I'm not going to be like them, because that makes them or it or whatever habit or person the reference point. We just say, here's where I'm going. That's where I'm going for. And in that way, we organize it and we change the particle behavior of every atom in the universe to where it starts wrapping itself around that intention to make it real. That's how we realize things. That's what manifestation is. It's taking it from potential to real, from goo into organized, a slightly more solid goo, but every bit as much water. Okay, isn't that weird and fascinating? Okay, yes, the nerd is out here. Okay, and I'm so glad you are loving this, Kayla, because this is the week every Wednesday. So again, talking about my speech coach, I loved how she always talked about speaking is a physical act. Creation is a physical act to a very large extent. When we want to realize our future, let's give it legs. Let's give it some attention. Let's give it some energy. Shine that light of consciousness onto it and start to recognize our creator power. I can have this because I say so, by the power of gray skull, which is this one. Yes, why not? Okay. By the power of gray matter. Okay. We're using our brains here. I'm going to organize and say, this is how my future is going to go. Now, the universe will say how that actually happens, and to a very large extent when it actually happens, but it is waiting for us to say, this is what I'd like. And if all we ever give it is, this is what I don't like, all it can give us is more of that, because that's all we've given it. So let's give it a little bit different input, okay? Now, this is new. It's all potential. Right now, and for probably the next couple of days, it might not feel like anything has changed. And that is when the restlessness tends to get really intense. A lot of times we think of anger or sadness or frustration as really intense, or bitterness, but restlessness and boredom can be just as intense. So again, you might have to tap into those emotional handling skills for the next couple of days while you trust that you did what you needed to do and the universe is now going to work for you, okay? So we don't have to react or resist and take it and shred it apart and say nothing's happening, it didn't happen as fast, okay? I'm going to tell you, from an impatient person, that's what I tended to do, and then makes manifesting and realizing things take a lot longer. Trust the process. Okay, goo does not go into butterfly instantaneously. There's some time there, okay? So in this time, and still with the call of these retrograde planets, don't go back into bad habits of eating, numbing, distracting, or dissociating from yourself or your body. Okay, we're moving. That is why the stuff hasn't changed yet, okay? That's why these things tend to last forever, okay? But instead, we're going to lean in. We're going to rest in the stillness. Instead of getting restless, we're going to rest in the stillness, okay? And tune in to hear now what is calling for love. If something is really intense, it's really calling for love. It's calling for the light and the love of your affection and attention. So instead of denying it, running away from it, or trying to keep its stuff down, let's let it come up. Let's be with it and let it flow out and say, thank you for visiting. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for letting me know where I needed more love. And then the last piece on quantum physics, because it's in my notes, segue wasn't great, my apologies. But as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, and I think I love how he says this, when we're talking about organizing it, it is the thought that sends the electrical signal out to the universe. This is what I want. But then our next step is we have to feel also, what is it going to feel like when I have that future? Because the feeling is the magnetic component that attracts it in. Because we have to practice a different way of feeling. We actually have to use our gray matter, our prefrontal cortex, to say, I'm going to call up these feelings so that I can bring up a different chemistry, and in that way recondition my body so that when this future comes, because I called it out and the universe said yes, it always does, that I called that out, it's coming in, but I need to practice receiving it, because if I have no acquaintance with it, my subconscious has no choice but to kill it because it sees it as unsafe. So that this is where the balance and where some of the confusion comes in. We got to have these emotions. We got to be with them, have some stillness, let them flow out, and also call up and conjure up the ones that we want to have, so that there's something filling and taking its place that is more in line with who we are and who we're becoming, so that we can recognize it when it comes and embrace it as friend. You can stay. That's how we're going to realize the future that we'd really like to have, instead of ending up recreating more of what we don't like, which is what we've been doing. Does this make sense to everybody? I'm going to go with yes. Okay. Final note here, we aren't going back ever or at all, okay? The planets may look like they're going backwards, but they're not. They're moving forward. We might feel like we've backslide, but we're not. We're just getting another call to heal something so that we can spring in forward and quantum leap, okay? The future forward, we are remembering ourselves. We are bringing back the pieces of ourselves and integrating and say, I get to have all of me. And we are also in the process of creation, meaning who we are right now is not who we're going to be in 10 minutes to 10 years from now, because we haven't created ourselves yet. A lot of us want to go back to what we had. We can't. It's over. It's gone. Bye-bye. We can grieve it. We can celebrate it, and we can have it and integrate it. And then we get to use it because we then have it to make something else new with. Creation is fun. It's really fun. Okay. So let's use this new moon, these retrograde, this part of the cycle is not the super busybody generation. Like that's the full moon time when we're really like, that the energy is moving outward. Now we're in the still. We're in the stillness. So what I'd like you guys to do, and this is Zoom, and I was all excited because I thought you guys had your cameras on, but if you don't, it's totally fine, is let us take a couple of minutes. And I know Power Hour, I put 60 to 80 minutes into these 30 minutes. So we are full and complete. And thank you so much for joining me. But I'm going to stay on a couple of minutes more. And I'm going to invite you to turn on your cameras if you can, or your microphones if you like. And I'm holding a space for us. And what I'm going to do first is we're going to have 2 minutes of silence to just recognize how little of that we often have in our mind and how it is a little bit awkward sometimes, but to start getting some comfort with that silence. And then grab a pen and a paper and let's put down some new moon intentions. What would I like to have in the next 30 days? How would I like to show up? What would I like to have show up in the next 3 months? And then in the next 6 months to a year? Let's start organizing the goo. And then at the end, we're going to seal them with a gratitude and actually feel what it feels like to have that. So this is my invitation, and you guys feel free to jump on, but I'm just going to hold some space for 2 minutes to let you guys just sink into your bodies, sink into your seats in your chairs or your bed if you're laying down. Rest against a wall if you're standing up, but let yourself be held in and by the silence for 2 minutes. Cool. Gave us a little bonus, like 15 seconds there. I don't know about you. 2 minutes sometimes feels like a long time. At least it does when it's me and my toothbrush. But now just grab a pen and paper. I like to use a red pen, yellow paper. That's what somebody told me a long time ago is energetically. But just grab a writing utensil and paper, and let's take a couple minutes to write down an intention. How would you like to organize this potential that's available right now? All right, how are you guys doing? Does anybody want to share in chat or video? If not, it's okay. These are totally fun. But then I just want you to take a moment to look at what you've written down and tap into how it feels to have these things. Like what it feels like when you see that it's real and you're living it, you have it. Is it relief? Is it excitement? Is it calm? Is it happy? Warm and happy. I love that. Thank you, Timber. Yeah, let that sink in. Let it sink in. And I just want you to take that warm and happy and say, thank you. Thank you to yourself for taking the time to organize it. Thank you to the universe because it's going to make this happen for you. And you can thank your future self for being patient with the present me who sometimes gets in the way, but we're all going to be there. You're welcome, Timber. I really enjoyed this time with you guys. I always love Power Hour, but this was a special treat for a new moon. And if you do want to hop on over to the group, if you do want to share what your intentions are, and let us celebrate with you and cheer you on and make it more real, I would love to do that. Otherwise, I look forward to hearing from you, getting your questions. Seeing you guys on every week is just a joy to me. So until next week, lots of love and light, patience with yourself with the new moon, enjoy the darkness, and I will talk to you again next week. Have a good one.